prepared to pay someone to effect service, because if I bring an indictment, I file criminal complaints against every member of the Texas legislature and the Texas Senate. I'm kind of an in-your-face sort of guy, you know. But so I file criminal complaints against them all, and what I did was if I brought an indictment against them, well, then I got to serve the indictment on them and tell them to appear, right? Order them to appear with summons. I got to serve a summons on them, and so I was gonna pay someone to go down there and serve all the summonses, and because it'd be quite easy, you just go down to the Texas, down to Austin there and serve them all. Sure, they'd be happy to get that. Well, I wouldn't. I can't. But some third party could. I was going to get Rick Bagwell to do it. He said he'd do it. But, you know, whatever. I mean, he could use the money. I mean, anybody that could use the money, I'd be happy to pay them something for their time and to go down and do that, you know, sure. But at any rate, it's so far we haven't been able to convene a grand jury on it. It's got to be a national grand jury, so that's a separate issue. At any rate, so what we have here, see, the Magna Carta is full of martial law, and we're going to talk about this, okay? The Magna Carta is full of martial law. What happened is in 1213, King John signed the concessions to the Vatican, to the Pope, okay? And if you read that thing, King John gave the Kingdom of Ireland and England to the Pope. He gave them to him. And then he agreed to pay tribute. And so 2 years, all it took was 2 years for those people to rise up in rebellion, stick a sword to his throat and say, hey, King, we want you to sign this. And if you read the Magna Carta, it's got martial law written all over it. And that's exactly what they're doing today, okay? And we're going to go through that. But so that's one of the reasons I'm bringing this out, okay? Because they're talking about, see, in section 38, it says, no bailiff for the future shall upon his own unsupported complaint put anyone to his law. Okay, well, gee, that sounds like private law. That sounds like, you know, a law merchant is called private international law, okay, and without credible witnesses, and that doesn't mean another cop. That means other witnesses, you know what I mean? And they're imposing martial law on the people, and that's the reason the Magna Carta came about, and I'm going to show you that the War of Independence was for the same reason, okay? It's in the causes and necessities for taking up arms, and the Declaration of Independence, it's all over the place. And they're doing the same thing again. They have no right to do anything to us except by common law. Now, this is actually where this is, no freeman shall be taken or imprisoned or seized or exiled or in any way destroyed, nor will we go upon him nor send upon him except by the lawful judgment of his peers or the law of the land. Now, the law of the land is not some statute passed by the government. Okay, and there's actually a court case that talks about that, and this is where, remember in the Fifth Amendment it talks about due course and process of law, okay? Well, this is where we're talking about here is the Fifth Amendment in the United States is the same thing, okay? The phrase law of the land means common law, okay? The words by the law of the land as here used do not mean a statute passed for the working of the wrong. The statute was taken with some modifications from a part of the 29th chapter of the Magna Carta, which provided that no freeman should be taken or imprisoned or seized of his freehold, etc., but by the lawful judgment of his peers or by the law of the land. Lord Coke, remember we talked about him, in his commentary upon this statute says that these words by the law of the land mean by the due course and process of law, which he afterwards explains to be by indictment and presentment of good and lawful men where such deeds are done in due manner or by the writ original of the common law. Okay, law of the land means common law. That's exactly what that means. And the same thing with this Fifth Amendment. The Founding Fathers put that Fifth Amendment in there so that to protect us. And when they say Fifth Amendment, say you're entitled to due course of law, due process of law, you're entitled to due process. That's what they're talking about. The phrase by law of the land means common law. To be that statutes, this is a New York court case. Oh no, that's North Carolina. To be the statutes which would deprive a citizen of his rights of person or property without a regular trial according to the course and usage of common law would not be the law of the land. Okay, capitis diminutio. Capitis diminutio. Okay, this is talking about capitalization. It means the diminishing of status through the use of capitalization. It's Roman law. Okay, what you're seeing out here is Roman law. It's all over the place. Okay, a diminishing or abridgment of personality, a loss or curtailment of man's status, or aggregate of legal attributes and qualifications. Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition. Capitis diminutio minima. Okay, meaning a minimal loss of stature to the use of capitalization. I know lots of people that don't use capital letters on their name. It's all lowercase. The lowest or least comprehensive degree of loss of status. This occurred where a man's family relations alone were changed. It happened upon the arrogation or pride of a person who had been his own master, of his own right, not under any legal disability, or upon the emancipation of one who has been under the betria potestas, parental authority, left the rights of liberty and citizenship unaltered. I'm not exactly sure how that works, quite frankly, but that's what the dictionary says. Capitis diminutio media, meaning a medium loss of status through the use of capitalization. You see this in Canada a lot. A lesser or medium loss of status where the last name is capitalized, right? They do that all the time. They'll capitalize your last name. It'll be last name first, and then first name upper and lower case. This occurred where a man loses his right of citizenship without losing his liberty. It carried away also his family rights. Capitis diminutio maxima. This is what you see here all over the place. Meaning a maximum loss of status through the use of capitalization. The highest or most comprehensive loss of status. This occurred when a man's condition was changed from one of freedom to one of bondage. When he became a slave, it swept away with it all rights of citizenship and all family rights. It's a slave. That's what it is, a slave. Now, it's not you. And that's what you have to understand, is that's a trust is what it is. It's a cestacate trust. And once you understand that, you can essentially walk away from it. It's not you. And I know people that, in Canada, there's a guy that I know that will go into court, and this is in Alberta, okay? And he said it works every time. He said he had to try it a few times before he got it down really good, but he says now it works every time. He'll go into court, he'll call his straw man's name, he'll get up, he'll say, "Are you the straw man?" He'll say, "I'm a beneficiary of a trust with that name, and I hereby appoint you to be trustee, and I demand that you settle this matter immediately. Now, are you going to perform your fiduciary duty, or do I have to sue you for breach of trust?" And the judge gets up, throws off his gown, walks out of the room. You won his case right there. Every time it happens, just like that. But if you think about it, that's exactly, see, although he's saying he's a beneficiary, and a beneficiary is a person. So I usually, in my paperwork, I tell them I'm not a beneficiary, I'm not a trustor, I'm not a grantor, I'm nothing to any trust, except a manager. I get to manage one, manage a couple. Anyways, I don't own anything, or very little. Actually, I don't own anything. Even the owner of my truck that's a cestacate trust with a name similar to mine. Okay, we have no more right to decline the exercise of jurisdiction which is given than to assume that which is not given. One or the other would be treason to the Constitution, okay? So it's treason for them to impose jurisdiction. Now you think about that. I mean, that's a lot of times what happens. But you got to understand, it's a void judgment, and we're going to talk about that, okay, when we get there. There's a lot of stuff we're covering today. I have seen court cases, they say they have to have the appearance of justice. Well, remember, doesn't the word of appearance have to do with color of justice, which is not real justice, it's a fraud? We use color of money to purchase color of justice, to get color of title for our land and our vehicles and our property. Do we really own anything? Everything is in fraud. It's like Ford Motor Company. Ford Motor Company makes rules and regulations for their employees. Does that mean anything to you? What happens when you get involved with internal rules and regulations for Ford Motor Company? Right? Isn't that what's happening? It's Ford. Are you a person? This is a Canadian court case when Parliament uses general words like all persons or all residents. They're only talking about persons or residents who are properly within their jurisdiction. Do you know who you are? Parliament can only implicate a sovereign citizen by express mention or a clear implication. a sovereign is not a person as far as the statute's concerned. That's why they can't sue you. That's why they don't want to talk to you. It's got nothing to do with you. That's why they criminally convert your name. They know you're the king. They criminally convert your name because they know that's the only thing they have any authority over. And they're hoping you'll come in and be an accommodation party under their law merchant. That's exactly what they're doing. There's 2 jurisdictions in Canada, geographical landmass and the juristic federal unit. There's 3 or 4 in the U.S. This is words and phrases judicially decided. The words Canada is used in 91.1 of the so-called Constitution Act does not refer to Canada as a geographical unit, refers to the juristic federal unit, a corporation. Sovereigns have the right to travel on the public highway with their private property, and they're not subject to regulation in any way. Sovereigns have unimpaired access to the first 8 amendments to the Constitution in the U.S., and it's equal in Canada. In other words, you have all common law rights. Okay? Again, if you're a citizen of Canada or a citizen of the United States, you're a corporation. That's exactly what you are, and you're a piece of property. If you're a corporation, then you're a piece of property. Subjects do not have access to the first 8 amendments except what Congress might grant. The term motor vehicle means every description or contrivance or other, every description of carriage or other contrivance propelled or drawn by mechanical power and used for commercial purposes on the highways and the transportation of passengers, property or cargo. And then it goes on, the term used for commercial purposes means the carriage of persons or property for any fare, fee, rate, charge. Okay, that's Title 18, United States Code, Section 31. In doing this, I shall have occasion incidentally to events, how true it is the states and governments were made for man, and at the same time how his creatures and servants at first deceived, next vilified, and at last oppressed their master and maker. Let a state be considered as subordinate to the people, let everything else be subordinate to the state. I mean, it's U.S. Supreme Court. This is Chisholm versus Georgia, 1795. In order for a member of the sovereignty to become subject to regulation in any way, they must agree to it. And actually, all you got to do is bring up the fact that there's a contract and they don't want to talk to you no more. With any contract, it has to be knowing, willing,